today I'm just going through my process for cleaning these little fine adhesive dispensers. I've found with mine that from time to time they block up, particularly if I store them upside down, which I used to sometimes do, and I would find that the adhesive would come out between the layers and between the nozzle and the lid of the container, and would be impossible to unblock. So I've worked out a way of actually cleaning them. I might just pull these apart and just show you. This larger one I use on my little bottles of multi-medium matte, which I used them to buy because they didn't last me long enough, and now I've got the fine nozzle dispenser. They last me for ages, but what that means is that from time to time they do get a little blocked up. One of the chief causes for getting them to block is not cleaning the end of the nozzle when you put the little guide wire back into that metal piece. If you leave little globs of glue and push this back, what it does is eventually it builds up inside there and little lumps of it get pushed down into the fine end, and over time it will block. So this is what I do. I just have a container, in this case just an old yogurt bucket, of warm water with nothing in it, and I just pull the bits and pieces, the various components of the nozzle off, and pop them in and let them soak. Take that off, throw it in, and this little end nozzle, the part that has the little lure locky on a syringe, this would be the business end of a needle. Take that off and you can see inside the mechanism of the cap there's built up debris and grotty bits inside there. In order to get this really clean, you need a pair of pliers or something like that, and very gently just untwist that, and that will remove the little nozzle. Now usually when you buy these fine adhesive containers, they will come with a few of these little lure locky endy things, nozzle ends. They just go in there too, and you can see there's quite a bit of debris built up all in there. It looks quite nasty. This one hasn't been cleaned for quite a while. It's still very patent, it's not blocked, but it goes in there anyway. What I do when I first open these to put the nozzle on, I tend to keep the little black cap that comes on the bottle, because while you're cleaning them, and it can take a few hours to actually clean this debris, I put the other cap back on so that the adhesive isn't drying up, and then just use tissue to make sure that the little lid mechanism is patent. Pop the lid on and then put that aside until I finish cleaning. Now this other little one I've just used, I think it had Scotch adhesive in it, but I've used all that up and it's getting pretty gungy. It's mucky down inside. You probably won't be able to see, but it is mucky down inside there. The threads aren't too bad, but there's a little bit of dried adhesive there. And with this one, the little lure locky thing is sort of on the outside rather than on the inside. So just take that off, drop it in the water, take the lid off, it's pretty mucky in there. Now I'll just let those soak, all of them, making sure that they're underwater for a good couple of hours before I start trying to clean them out. And to clean them out, sometimes you might need a little pokey tool, because that enables you to get down in amongst that thread and clean out anything deep down in there. You can see there's gunge coming out already, dropping into the water. That all needs to be cleaned out pretty thoroughly, but I'll leave them to soak because that's the best way to get it off. And I've not, any of the glues that I normally, or the adhesives that I normally use, all of them soak off really well with just plain warm water and nothing else. So I'll put them aside and let them soak until that I can get to clean them properly in an hour or two. When I refill, this is one that's been used many times, refilled many times. The little lure locky part is actually broken, and this is my spare, well, the other one's the spare one. This is the second one that came with the when I purchased them. And I could probably super glue that down, but I haven't bothered because it works perfectly well. It's held together by the two components of the cap, and you don't need to worry about it. I was a bit vigorous when I cleaned it, and so I just dislodged it, but it works okay, so I don't worry about that. I always make sure that the thread, and right down in the base of this little the little needle part that keeps the lure clean, is completely clean down in there. And sometimes it can be really helpful if you haven't got a pokey tool that's sort of long enough or fine enough, is simply to use either the pointy or the blunt end of a darning needle, because it lets you get right down inside there. I tend not to use anything that's got like a swab that's got cotton wool on it. I wouldn't use that because it has the potential to leave fibres down inside. So when I fill these, I simply put the adhesive in that I want, and this is a Helmer Tacky Craft glue. Now I've got these, I can control it much better. And as I say, particularly for the multimedia mat, a little tub like this would probably last me 12 months, and I use it quite often. Right, that's filled the bottle. Get rid of any spillage that you might have spilt onto the external closure. Put the white cap on. Put the little nozzle part on securely, and in my case making sure I've pressed it well down because that one is loose, remember, and then screw on the little yellow part and make sure that everything is really tight. Once it is, put the little needle cleaner in, and that's ready to go. If I've got more than one going at a time, then I always label them, because one white glue is very like another. And I used to just write on it, you might see there, that was Scotch glue before, but this time I'm using a little label because it just is easier to replace when the time comes. Now that's going to be in use probably for the next few months and be quite patent. But as I said before, I never store them upside down, which I used to do, because a lot of these other adhesives I do store upside down because they close well enough, but not with these, because I found that the adhesive tends to accumulate and sometimes there's a little seepage and it can block them off. And the way I knew that was happening was I would get some adhesive coming out between the white top and the coloured top. It would oozle out there or even out through the threads, because I was putting so much pressure trying to get the adhesive out, and nothing I could do with a needle or anything else would clear it. I had to pull it apart. Okay, so that's the basics, that's where we're up to. I'll get back to you shortly once my little bucket of bits and pieces has soaked for long enough and I can clean them and show you how I do that. Well, here we are back again. These have all had a good soak and I've finished washing them up, and all of them came pretty clean. The only trouble I had was with these little ones, and it wasn't really any trouble. The last little bits and pieces I couldn't get out from inside the little nozzles, and what I had to do was actually blow them. Now these ones I'll just leave those to dry because that one has got the largest, it's the largest sized one I have, and I know that was the multimedia matte and this was the other one, and I'll leave these all out unassembled probably for another 2 or 3 hours to let them dry fully before I put them away, because I don't intend filling that one just yet. Getting everything out from inside this little bit down in there was probably the trickiest, and I didn't want to damage this one like I did the other one, but I found the easiest way is after you've rinsed it, use your pokey tool down in there just gently to dislodge any little bits, and then rinse it and give it a good blow. Just put your lips to that end and give it a good blow. I did that maybe 3 times, rinsed it, blew it, rinsed it, and everything came out really well. But it was pretty well gunged up, I have to admit. These are easy enough to put in by hand. You don't need to use the pliers, and you do need, if you do use the pliers, just get them at the base and don't crush them. If you squeeze too hard you will crush them, but you can use the pliers to help you put them in. But I find, and I don't have particularly strong hands anymore, they go together pretty well with just finger pressure. Put that on, remove the top, and remember, save that for next time I want to clean it. Just give it a bit of a squeeze to make sure that any water that might be left inside is out. And put the top back on, and that's it, done. This one I'll just leave, as I said, to finish drying completely. Make sure that's completely dry before I reassemble it, and they can just sit there until such time as they're dry, and then I'll put that together and put it away in my store box until I'm ready to fill it again. And there you have it. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was useful. Hope you get perhaps a little bit more prolonged life out of your fine applicators. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.